Hello, and welcome to Required Reading, the podcast that revisits the most impactful books from our childhood. I'm your host, Erin Bowles. I'm a writer, actor, and bad at parties. Our guest today is Madeline Douglass. She is a writer and painter currently based out of Nashville, Tennessee. Mad studied dramatic writing at SCAD and was fortunate enough to meet one Erin R. Bowles there. I didn't write that, she wrote that. She worked on several short films and HGTV's Good Bones before pivoting back to her original love of painting during the pandemic. Hi, Madeline.
Hi, Erin. Oh my gosh.
It's so good to see you.
So good to see you too. I know I've texted you a couple times, but I really cannot emphasize how much I love this podcast.
Thank
Um,
you.
don't listen to many podcasts, so you absolutely did come up in my Spotify Wrapped. I think you're my number two, I want to say.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
but this has been so much fun. I have reread so many books because of you.
Like what?
Well, I'm rereading the Percy Jackson series right now. There's another one that you did that I reread earlier on, one of your first ones or whatever. And I was like, oh my God. It's like, first of all, I still have that book around here somewhere. And I was like, I have to read that again.
Oh,
But it's been very fun to, I don't know, just hear your voice and hear your opinion on these different books. And oh my God, it makes me like, I feel crazy because I work nights or whatever. And so I'm in there listening to your podcast, talking to myself. And people are just like, what are you listening to? I'm like, let me plug my friend Erin.
oh, thank you.
Or
But today's book is The Boxcar Children, the very first book from 1924 by Gertrude Chandler Warren. 1924, first Winter Olympics is held. It's in the French Alps. Calvin Coolidge becomes the first US president to deliver a radio broadcast from the White House. Adolf Hitler is sentenced to 5 years in prison for participation in the beer hall putsch the year before, but he serves less than 9 months. We're already at Hitler. We're just starting strong. MGM is founded. J. Edgar Hoover is appointed the head of the FBI. Fascism is rising in Italy. The last known sighting of a California grizzly bear is recorded. And Nellie Taylor Ross of Wyoming is elected as the first woman governor in the United States. Good on
ended
you,
on a high
Nellie.
note there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You gotta end on a high note. It's gotta be like,
that was very much look one
exactly.
very high note.
I learned that with Little House on the Prairie. It was like Adolf Hitler. That was the one you reread?
That's the book. That's the book.
Hell yeah. The next episode I'm doing is The Care and Keeping of You, the American Girl doll book, and her other choice, Little House on the Prairie. It's gonna be a
Oh
good
my
one.
God.
I never got that one. I had a
Really?
different Here's About Your Body book,
That's how I learned about periods.
but Gertrude Chandler Warner, I keep saying Warren because Chandler was a girl in my Girl Scout troop, and then Miss Warren was one of our leaders, so it's tripping me up. But Gertrude wrote the first 19 books of this series. I think there might be over 160.
I didn't realize this, but in the first page of this book, there's like,
Yeah.
what the how? That's fantastic.
She became a first grade teacher during World War One. I think because there were no people to be teachers. She never married. She lived in her parents' house for almost 40 years and then moved into her grandmother's house. And then in the 60s, she moved into her own house and lived there with a retired nurse who was her companion.
Companion.
Exactly. She once said that she did a lot of her writing while convalescing from illnesses or accidents. I think she had like a sickly childhood. She conceived of the idea while she was sick. She had already written a series of 8 books for a religious organization. And so she says, I decided to write a book just to suit myself. What would I like to do? Well, I would like to live in a freight car or a caboose. I would hang my wash out on the little back piazza and cook my stew on the little rusty stove in the caboose. And the books were criticized for depicting children with little parental supervision. And
But
her
that's the best part.
exactly. So her critics thought that it would encourage rebellion, and her response was, well, that's why they like it, which is true. So
God.
good on you, Gertrude. So, what is your story with these books? How did this come into your life?
Oh, my mother. How did everything come into my life? My mother.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we're going to talk about moms a lot on
Yes,
this,
so much.
which, you know. So speaking of Little House on the Prairie, if I'm remembering correctly, that was like the first chapter book that Dorothy and I read together. And that was like one of those where like she'd read a page and she'd make me read a page. And then it moved into she'd read a chapter, I'd have to read a chapter. The Boxcar Children was the first book that like I read on my own And I have a terrible memory, but I'm pretty sure I read this either going into second grade or sometime during second grade independently. And then I don't remember if our second grade teacher started it or if I think it was our third grade teacher, but she read it to the class, but I'd already read it. And so I was like reading ahead, like
It's
all
the
the
best
different books.
feeling. Yeah.
And my classmates hated me. Girl, I was not popular.
Yeah. Third
But
grade was
like,
rough. Yeah.
yeah, because they were, the one little tiny chapter and then with the big cliffhanger. And I'm like on the 10th book or some shit like that. And they were just like, oh my God. But this made me want to keep reading. This is like the first chapter book that I was like, there's another one.
Oh.
That's not like a picture book or something like that. And that was not like required reading for class. That I was just like, I need to have more. I need more of this. Very different experience growing up, but like as a kid, this had me. Ooh, I loved this book so much. I reread this too as a kid. Yeah. And oh my God, girl, I can't tell you the grip that this book had on me. And I was not an outdoorsy child at
Yeah.
all, kept to myself inside, reading my little, but I wanted to live in a boxcar. I wanted the opportunity to prove that I could do that. I could just live outside and live off the land. I could go find a little stream somewhere and I could just be set. And that's absolutely not accurate. I was a very dependent little child.
Yeah. But
But
I love that sense of like something I really liked in the book is that it's not about like playing house as much as it is about making your
yeah,
own house and space.
yes. Yeah, there was a sense of comfort to it and like a sense of independence that I craved so badly. Oh my God. And that's another thing. Like, this is interesting because we're both only children.
Yeah.
And, there's four siblings. This is where it kind of, where I said this might get a little sad. This is where this might get a little sad
Yeah.
because I craved the sibling connection so badly because of this book. I wanted that sense of community and that sense of like people that will never leave me because we have the bond or whatever. But that also is one of the things that I remember so much from this book. I just this huge sense of yearning. I wanted people so badly because of this book. And I
Yeah.
like never found it as a kid.
I never read these, but I had the exact same thing with the Narnia books. I never read
Yeah.
these, no.
Oh my God, that's so wild.
I don't know why I never read them. I think they just like I don't remember them being around really.
Yeah,
And I guess I sort of had them lumped in with like Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys of like old.
absolutely old people books. Because, and like I said, because my mom is the one that was like, you have to read the Boxcar Children because she had every single Nancy Drew book. And I don't think they were like her originals from when she was a kid. I think she had rebought them for me and I quote unquote
Mhm.
read them. Told her
No.
I read like the first two. I didn't read them all. They were
Yeah.
boring as all shit. Did not even attempt the Hardy Boys. I don't think, although I think I told my mother that I did. I hope she doesn't listen to this. She won't.
For children, I also really wanted siblings as well. I took like I did not take a lot of notes during this book. I read it mostly on a plane. It's tight. It's like 100 little pages. Oh, I wanted to ask you, did you read the whole series? What it ends it in a way that I'm like, they're not even in the boxcar anymore.
No, and they turn into mystery books after this. Like they go to a different place and then they solve a mystery. And
Yeah.
I read probably 20-ish of them, but not, I don't think I read them in order.
Right.
I think I started in order, but I probably read a good 20 of them, if not more than that. But I always just kept coming back to this first one because of the boxcar. Yeah, because that's the
Yeah.
fun part of living in the box. Like, why would you call them the boxcar children if they move out of the box?
Yeah. When I was doing a tiny bit of research on Gertie, she kept saying, like, this is a mystery book. And I was like, no, it's not. The
No,
mystery is, like, where are we going to get food? And then the second book, the title, I don't remember what it was, but it was something like Surprise Island. And that
that's
sounds
it.
really different.
Yeah. I only vaguely like remember that book. I don't remember what the mystery of it was. I don't remember any of the story, but that one, it was a surprise. I mean, and I fully did not expect it to be a mystery when I read it. This one is not a mystery. I don't know what she's
No.
talking about. Oh, well, okay, but then this brings up an interesting thing that I you didn't really touch on in your intro. You kind of did. So she wrote this originally in 1924 and then they
Yes.
revised it.
Mhm.
So this cutesy little new version, this little short thing, I mean, maybe the original one was a mystery because
Maybe.
everybody says that that one was a lot darker. I never read that. We started talking about this and I was like, God, should I go back and reread the original one? And I was like, or read the original one because I never read it. And I was like, that feels like a lot of effort, honestly.
Yeah, I did not go hunting for it and didn't find a lot of info about it, but I guess like it does feel like there are things missing. I think
Yeah.
so they have this thing with their grandfather. They lose their parents and are orphaned. They don't want to go to their grandfather who they've never even seen.
Yeah. Which I have so many questions there's so many questions in there.
Yeah, it
What
seems
happened
like
to the
maybe
parents?
that's like a lot of what got cut out.
Yeah, which and especially if that original one was darker or whatever, I mean, maybe it wouldn't. Maybe I should go and read that because that's a lot of my notes were like questions they have of like
Yeah.
what happened to their parents, who failed these children so badly that they were put out on the street after their parents died. Why did they have nowhere they could go?
Yeah,
Oh,
but I guess it's like so one of the pervading things I got is like reading this, you're like, oh, it's actually really hard to like live on your own and like they get so much enjoyment out of like blueberries and like a cup. And so like that's learning to be like it's the equivalent of like children are starving in Africa, which is I think the refrain we always got, our
yes.
generation.
This very much feels like, I mean, this is the boomer lesson, right? This is the
Very, yes.
Yes. I mean, it really is. I mean, chapter by chapter, there's like a little lesson for everything. And that's, I think I wrote that on like one of these pages where it ends on like a little cliffhanger. And I was like, oh my God,
Hmm.
cliffhanger. But every single little chapter's got like a little moral, a little principle
Yeah.
lesson in it or something like that, which is probably why parents and teachers loved it so much back in the day, especially older parents and older teachers,
Yeah.
of which
Which
I
is
have.
interesting. Yeah, my dad is old. And
Yeah.
like, and when he did read to me, it was always longer books. I think like, you know about me and Wizard of Oz, but I think
Yeah.
like these little books, was like, there's, what am I going to get from this little flimsy? Also, I am realizing I was not much of a reader. And so I was like,
You said something about this in an earlier podcast that made I like literally had to pause it and be like, how have we never talked about this? Because yeah, I was bookish, but I read the same like five or six books
mhm,
just over and over and over again. And they were, Harry Potter.
yeah,
It was this first, and then I think and then Harry Potter probably came next, and then like Twilight.
yeah.
So excited for
Which
the
is
Twilight
coming.
episode.
Yeah,
I
that's
know.
coming. I just remember reading a lot. I had like graphic novels of Lizzie McGuire and Kim Possible episodes. And so I remember reading those a lot. And I remember watching a lot of TV and like it makes sense actually in hindsight as you know,
Yeah.
a screenwriter that I would read those a lot, but hilarious also in hindsight.
That's fantastic. Oh my God. I feel like, see how many other only children I know. Because
Mm.
I feel like there's some sort of connection being an only child
Mhm.
and books. Because that's like your friends.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know about you, but it was fucking hard for me
it
to make
was.
connections with other people. But
Yeah.
these, I connected with the books so easily. I mean, I didn't have to talk to anybody.
Exactly. I moved after second grade to a new neighborhood. And so I moved from this group of kids that like I had already known and I had already made those relationships aided by my parents. And then
Yeah.
I moved to this new neighborhood and these kids just seemed like angrier. Maybe that's just because like they were in like, you know, fifth, sixth grade and I was in third grade and that's just like what happens in life. And I didn't really engage with them. And then I went to a third elementary school and then it was middle school and it was just, yeah, books were easier. And by the time I was in middle school, I was just really gung-ho on TV. And
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I didn't read a lot, but I was darn sure gonna do the assigned reading.
Yeah, I read ahead.
Oh
I
yeah.
was a, oh my God. But like, I mean, so talking about the Boxcar Children specifically with this, I guess, I don't know if you want to call it a phenomenon or whatever,
Mhm.
but so I didn't move elementary schools or anything like that. I went K through 10 with the same fucking
Right.
50 people.
Oh.
And I mean, I like the person I'm living with now. We've known each other since we were like fucking 4 or 5 years old, way too long. But she has like brothers and everybody that I knew, because I'm from Indiana, it's a big church area. Everybody goes to church. We didn't go to church. All of these kids, they got to hang out like on the weekends and like do all of these extracurricular activities. And I was like, what are you guys doing? Where are
Yeah.
you going? And why can't I go with you?
Yeah.
And it was just me off by myself, and my parents worked full time, so I had to figure out something to like free under to occupy my time. And so I just read
Yeah.
and books like the Boxcar Children, and then later, like I said, Harry Potter, where they got these groups of friends or, the siblings, the community built in. And I wanted that so badly for myself. I wanted it so, so badly. And I just, oh, so this, like, the Boxcar Children fulfilled that. It fulfilled that sense of adventure that I craved and the independence that I really, really wanted. Because as an only child, your parents are kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
right there,
Yeah.
and not a whole lot of independence there.
Yeah.
They try and like it's like that terrible double-edged sort of like they try and teach you independence, but also the way they are, they make you kind of almost codependent on them.
Mhm.
But it's like,
I don't know if we've discussed this, but I bet that this was your experience as well of like being an only child, but also like you're such an adult and like you can talk to adults and like, hey, and you're like really being adultified. And then you're like, I don't know how to relate to other kids. And now I'm
yeah,
an adult and I don't know how to relate to other adults because like,
exactly. And then you read books like this, which were written by adults. So
mhm,
like they're kids talking like adults, and so you think that that's okay and you think that
yeah.
that's appropriate. But then when you actually try to talk to other kids like that, you get bullied. It doesn't
Yeah.
work out.
And these kids get along so well together. I think that was something that struck me really early on. Benny is the youngest, and then Violet is the next one. And there were a lot of moments where Violet is like, I know how to convince Benny to do this. Like,
Yeah,
I know exactly how to frame this so that he will go along with it. And I was like, how is Violet exhibiting so much intelligence on like how to, but there's no conflict, they're all really gung-ho together, they have like such a clear system. And I think
yeah,
when I started reading it and I didn't know about the whole grandfather thing, because basically they have this wealthy grandfather who's like looking for them so he can take them in and like give them a good life.
yeah.
um
But they don't know that. They're terrified
no.
of him.
Yes,
Why are they
which,
terrified of him?
so I start hypothesizing and I'm like, well, maybe they had a pair of grandparents that were in their life and were awful because I had some awful grandparents.
Ooh,
But like, yeah, there's so many questions about it, especially because then you're like, so these kids chose to be homeless and to figure
yeah,
this all out on their own.
yeah,
I feel like that almost undercuts the like gratefulness of it. And I think, like you were saying about boomers, like I think there is a really like, if you work really hard and you're really industrious and you go help other people,
pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
exactly. If you
Whatever
just
I'm saying.
mow a lot of lawns and like pick a lot of cherries, you'll have enough, and then someone will come in and you can afford a mortgage.
Yeah,
You
you have
know,
$4. What more do you need?
exactly. I
Oh,
won $25 from the foot race. Which I just actually, I'm gonna tap on my very loud keyboard, but I want to see in 1924 how much was $25. Almost $500. Fair.
they could have bought a house. What were they doing?
Exactly. It was still the good times. It
Yeah,
was still the good times. Children living in a boxcar, but it was the good times, you know?
yeah. I mean, it sounded like a great time to me.
Well,
I
that was something I was like, I think the criticism is like of like little parental supervision. That's bullshit. But I am like, these children are just eating random berries, and
Yeah,
like, and I'm a little worried about their safety.
yes. And like the milk in the little refrigerator under the little waterfall, I was kind of going, I don't know
Yeah,
about this
these
one, kid.
kids.
And then drinking the water out of the streams, just like
They
I
built
wasn't,
a full swimming pool in a stream.
I was fully convinced that I was able to do that. I was like, if I had access to a stream and a bunch of rocks, I could build a swimming pool. Easy.
Mhm.
Done. Like it wouldn't take me any time at all. I was what, 7, 8 years old. I was like,
Where are they getting all
honest,
these logs? There's so many logs.
and like I think she's from Connecticut, maybe,
Yeah, I think.
which I've never been to Connecticut. Maybe there's more like just random logs and usable rocks up there in Connecticut than there were in Indiana, but there absolutely were not in Indiana that many
No.
or rocks. And I did a little bit go looking for things like that.
Mhm.
That was I think the closest, to like a sibling relationship was I had with my two cousins. And after I read this book, I spent a couple of summers with them, out running wild at the monument shop.
Mhm.
And like I don't think Hannah was my age, and then her little sister was 4 years younger than us. I was like in my little boxcar
Mhm.
fantasy era, and I was like, we're gonna live in nature. And Hannah was just like, fuck
Yeah.
yeah, we are. We're gonna live in nature. And poor V was just like,
You have to tag along. Yeah.
yeah, she would have been like 4 or 5, wouldn't she have been? But we were just dragging her along with us and like trying to build fires and shit like that. Girl, we were nasty little kids just running around. Did we make it? No, we did not.
The only thing I could really think of was like there was a girl who lived across the street from me for just a year or two. It was really brief, and she was 2 years older than me. And I
Yeah,
think we were both only children. So there was this huge hill like across the street from my parents' house. And so one
yeah.
year it's got this giant, gorgeous tree, tons of leaves. So we took all of the leaves one fall and somehow compacted them into a tiny sofa. And like and so we like made a whole living room and we're like, this is the sofa and this is the TV. And like I thought it was a real accomplishment. And I think looking back, it's like those are mounds, those are just piles. But I love that they went to the dump, sustainable thrift stores. I was at my boyfriend came home from the thrift store 2 nights ago and he brought home a giant painting. It's like a reprint, but it's a giant reprint of a Fragonard painting with a gorgeous frame. And he came in and he was like, when did you pose for this?
Oh my God. What a line.
I
What a
know. And it was,
line.
you must have thought that it's like a 45-minute walk, man. You had a lot of time for that. And then he had a little tiny balloon dog. And he goes, I found this on the ground. And then the third thing was a giant ceramic cookie jar of a pig in puffy overalls. But I can't tell if he's smiling or evil. It's very scary. But I love a thrift store. I went to the thrift store the other day and I found this mushroom that they had at Target for $3 for like Halloween, and I kept wanting to buy it. My boyfriend's like, no, you don't need it. You don't need it. And then I found it for $1. So now I do need a sign.
Absolutely. No, yeah, the dump I did. The only page that I marked in this book was the page with the little shelf
The
drawing.
shelf. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, and the little chipped up dishes and stuff like that. Oh, I loved them going to the dump again because I have a shit memory. I remember as a kid, or maybe it was just because when you're a kid, things are so much bigger than they
Yeah.
are now. I remember that dump scene being so much bigger than it actually was.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
but like my dad is a big trash picker still to this day. The man's 62 years old, 61, whatever it is. Still, we'll just pull shit right out of the trash, pull over on the side of the road. There's something sitting at the end of somebody's driveway. That's coming home with him. Does he need it? No, but he might. He might use it. You never know.
You never know.
Um, and I am terribly afraid that I inherited that from him. And then this book was like, yeah, that's good though.
Yeah,
That's a good trait. That's a solid quality of a person to have. You don't
exactly.
need to buy new things. Maybe that's why, maybe I'll just blame all my problems on the boxcar children.
Yeah, solid. Running
Don't
away
throw
from things. Yeah.
exactly. Don't throw anything away. Go live in the woods in a boxcar and don't talk to your grandfather. So
Yeah.
let's talk about grandfathers. I think
Yes.
this is the next interesting thing
Yes.
because I know you have very interesting relationships with, I think, both sets of your grandparents, right?
Yeah, kind of. One of them, like my dad's parents were just much older, so they died when I was much younger.
Yeah.
and they're just funny people. So on my dad's side, my grandfather was a construction worker and a drummer. My grandfather like very clearly had depression, and so he was a drinker. He stepped out a lot on my mom or on my grandma. And my grandmother she was so cool. I think like she died when I was pretty young, and I really like lionized her. I was like, I mean, we went to college. I wrote a pilot where she's a secret agent. Like,
Yeah.
and she's really cool. All my family's from Kentucky. So she had a music store in the mall where like a lot of bluegrass legends would like come in and buy stuff. And she also managed the mall in Lexington, Kentucky. And when my dad was in college, my dad got married and then got divorced after like a year. And then a year or two later, he finishes college and his parents divorce. And he always makes the joke of like, I gave them the idea. What a good guy. And then when my grandfather died, we were at my grandmother's house, like about to go to the funeral. And we're like, hey, Pat, you sure you don't want to come? We're about to leave. And she goes, nah, too much water under that bridge. I'm good. And then knowing her, as soon as we left, she probably put on Criminal Minds. She was like an early adopter of Criminal
The,
Minds.
it's a solid coping mechanism. I think
Yeah,
Criminal Minds has a place and
I
absolutely.
remember watching the first season finale with her. That was the first time I ever saw that show. It was that
Yeah.
episode. It's a good one. Mandy Patinkin is there.
Oh, Mandy Patinkin.
And then my mom's mom was a full monster. And her dad was like, in the end, a good guy. I think both of my grandfathers were just like kind of like weak personalities, like who just got stepped on a lot. But he
Yeah.
was also like the community college dean, the historian of his really small town, wrote the book on it twice. We didn't know there was enough for two. He would like in his later years, he was like losing his faculties, but would still just like go to the dock and just start giving lectures to people about the history of the town. If your grandparents say some.
Well, my mom's parents died when I was very young.
Yeah.
That's I could do 10 episodes of a podcast just on my
Yeah.
mom's parents. But what
Same.
what really was my dad's dad in
Mm-hmm.
particular is how I related to this book, I think the most. So my dad and his older brother and their mom, and Peg was her name, and then Roy is my grandfather. They divorced when my dad and his brother were young, and Roy remarried to wife number two, and wife number two hated my
Mm.
dad and his brother and that whole thing. And
Oh
so
gosh.
up to like age 18, I've had met my grandfather, I think, four, maybe five times
Mm.
of significance. Didn't know him, didn't like him from a distance because I didn't know him. And the only thing I knew about him was that, he and my grandmother had split up and she had always hated him. My great aunt had always hated him. I never met my grandmother. She died in 89.
Mhm.
Um, and so all I knew about that whole relationship was the very tiny bit I got from my dad, which was not much. And then from my great aunt Pat, who kind of was a kind of substitute grandmother, but she always made it pretty clear that I was not her grandchild. Complicated, better
Yikes.
relationship, but she was like, "That's a terrible man. Don't like him. He doesn't like you. His wife doesn't like you. Their two new boys don't like you." And every time I met them, wife number two was cold. She
Mm.
was very cold. And then Roy was just, so then fast forward, wife number two dies and he remarries. Now he's on wife number three. Her name's Jeanette. She's great. She's gotten him therapy, drugs, a fucking PTSD diagnosis. The man has had PTSD since Vietnam.
Yeah.
Okay. He is so steady. He's drinking less. He has gone full, he was very right wing, conservative, insane person, all the way to the other side. Now he's Mr., women's rights, gay rights, trans rights. Like, he's still weirdly very pro military, but he's very cool. He's like the greatest dude. But when I was a kid, I was fucking terrified of him because he was a mystery. I didn't know anything
Yeah.
about him. The only thing I had ever heard, my dad didn't talk about him ever. My mom would kind of be like, he wasn't great. He wasn't there for your dad when he was a kid. And I was terrified of him. And I was like, so I get these kids, adults and
Yeah.
children, terrified of their grandfather. I was like, yeah, grandfathers are people to be terrified of. Absolutely. That was not my experience with my mom's dad, but that's again a
Mhm.
whole other story. Like, I get it. My personal little backstory for these children is that grandfather Alden didn't like the spouse.
Yeah,
And
that makes
I don't,
sense.
yeah, he would be their dad's dad because they have his name. So like I was like, he didn't like the wife for some
Yeah.
reason. Something about she was from the wrong side of the tracks or something like that.
Yeah,
But
wrong
like,
religion or something. Yeah,
yeah, that could be another one too. Or let's not bring race into it, but maybe these kids are biracial.
could be. It
Don't know.
certainly wouldn't help.
Probably not. In 1924 slash
Yeah.
42, 42 sounds right. The grandfather thing was terrifying. I mean, and especially I almost, now that we're talking about mystery and now that I'm thinking about it, almost leaving it a mystery,
Hmm.
that kind of gives it another layer other
Yeah.
than just the, very straightforward sentences and story plot lines or whatever. I really remembered this book being a lot more complicated than it is.
I think I was doing some research and I think she said like the educational books that I think kids had when you were really young were like Jack and Jill, and those
Yeah,
were real boring, but had like
yeah,
really clear sentence structure. And so I think the
yeah,
the goal with this was like, let's have it be interesting as you're learning to read,
yeah,
rather than
yeah.
just like, here's a dog. Although, save the cat moment right off the bat. Save that dog.
I
Um,
completely forgot there was a dog. Oh my God.
yeah. I didn't know there was a dog, and then when it was introduced, I was like, of course there is. Yeah, that
Yeah, it
yeah.
makes sense. Absolutely. And of course, they're going to name it something very simple. They're like, oh, he'd be a good watchdog. Well, let's name him Watch. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I the teddy bear I had since I was very young was named Teddy.
Very nice. A solid name.
Yeah. The first chapter is set up with this baker's family. The baker's wife does not like children, explicitly says it.
I took minimal notes within the book because I bought
Mhm.
this again. And literally, she said, the baker's wife did not like children. I wrote, same.
And then the next page, she's like, well, actually, I would like to have kids around because I don't like doing dishes. And then that's the page where Benny says we have a grandfather in Greenfield, but we don't like him. And I think that's all it says. And I think that was made it interesting because then Jessie puts her hand over the boy's mouth to keep him quiet. And it's like, oh, there's stakes, there's danger.
What else would he say if she
Yeah,
let him run? Just
exactly.
let's see what he would say. This first chapter is, I mean, it's a good opening chapter. It
Yeah.
creates a lot of intrigue.
It's right in the middle in media res, but they're always like very jolly children until the end when Violet gets a mysterious illness from laughing too hard and then crying too hard.
Feels like an ultimate mental breakdown right there.
Yeah, I think I have BPD. And I was like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you got it. That I think, like, as a writer, that could make sense of like, Violet is just now realizing like her parents are dead and we're homeless and life is really stressful. I don't think that's what it is.
I don't, yeah, I think it's probably just like a
We got to get to the next part of the story.
bronchitis or something. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know what kind of sickness makes you cry uncontrollably.
But they are like swimming in a creek. And
Maybe she just has something bacterial. That's terrifying.
the next note I have is Jesse liked to have things in order. Same.
Maybe they each represent a mental illness.
Winnie the Pooh. Henry's delusional. He's so optimistic.
He's
Um,
he's so like he's a go-getter.
mhm.
But and then she'd be like obsessive compulsive and then Violet's got some
Hysteria? I don't know.
ah,
Let's say olden times.
maybe Benny's been dead the whole time.
Well, I did just listen to an audiobook where that was the twist.
God. Oh, no.
My next note is Benny says dogs don't like cheese. That's not what TikTok has led me to believe.
Not accurate at all. Dorothy's dogs will literally come from every corner of the house. You just open a bag of cheese and they're
It's
like, that's
the cheese tax.
cheese tax.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then this is the moment where they're trying to get Benny to wash, and Violet says, that'll be fun, Benny. We'll splash our paws in the brook just as little brown bear does. She knew that Benny did not like to be washed. Like, where are you getting this from, Violet?
I again, I want to know these kids' backstory so bad.
And you never get it, right? In the rest
No,
of the books, it's just on to the next. The real
no,
mystery is what happened to these kids.
I'm sure there were like little like details or whatever, but again, when you're 7, 8, 9 years old as a reader, you don't care about any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. What I've learned from at least the Wizard of Oz books, and especially like there's always an opening letter from the author that's very telling. When you write 19 of these books, you don't remember what's happening in all of them. Like L. Frank Baum made conflicting maps of Oz, just fully forgot
Yeah.
which side Munchkinland was on. Like
Oh no.
fully just riding by the seat of your pants, trying to make which like in the end I forgive because it's like he just wants to make kids smile.
Yeah. Oh
And like
God.
you said, they don't really care.
I'm trying to like read through my notes. My
Hmm.
handwriting is atrocious.
My next one is, "What fun!" cried Jessie, "eating with spoons."
It is, I mean, that is, yeah.
Although one time, do I have it right here? It doesn't matter. One time I was digging in the lawn in the place I used to live at, and I found a full spoon. It was like a baby spoon, but it had like an enamel handle. It was really nice.
Oh my God. I usually, so I'm like, I'm sitting at my little art desk or whatever. I usually have a spoon around here. I definitely have an old knife. He's all fucked up on the end, but I've usually got, because I inherited, I say inherited, maybe not the most accurate term, but my mother was like, I'm going to throw away all of this old silverware,
Mm.
like cool old with like,
Yeah.
her dad collected like spoons and shit that had all the states on them
Oh.
on like the handle or whatever. And so she was like, I'm gonna throw these 20 spoons away if you don't take them. And I was like, again, because this book said
Yeah.
you use old shit. You can't
What
let anything go to
fun.
waste.
Hmm.
Take those spoons. They get a little weird when you put them through the dishwasher, so I don't really use them for eating anymore, but I use them for like paint and shit like that.
Yeah. Did you see that picture of that mobile I sent you?
Yes.
Those were Beanie Baby heads attached to
Okay.
sunflowers and a
So
hula
like
hoop.
I was looking at that, trying to like kind of figure out what the fuck those things were. And I was like, I
Beanie
figured they
Baby
were little like
heads.
stuffed animal things. Oh,
I saw they were stuffed animal heads, and then one had a Beanie Baby tag on it. It was like those could be money. That's a choice, you know. You had to be unless it was like really early days. You had to be like, you know what, I'm chopping these, and I'm gonna money be damned. I'm gonna make this for myself.
I never really got into the Beanie Baby things when I was a kid. I know I had a couple, but what I really got into, Webkins.
Oh, I knew you were gonna say Webkins. Hell yeah. They had to be banned in my elementary school. I think these kids were gambling on them or something. Yeah.
Like trading them or whatever. You could
Hmm.
like trade a little card or whatever like that. And then I vaguely remember like third or fourth grade, we were not allowed to bring the actual stuffed animal in,
Yeah.
but everybody, they were like trading cards.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a good time. Now they're like free. You can just like go on there. There are like the specialty ones or whatever that you still
Oh
have to like
yeah.
buy the actual animal or whatever, but like you don't have to. You can just get a free animal and like create a Webkins account. And don't ask me how I know that.
Yeah.
COVID lockdown was an interesting time. I was
No,
like,
absolutely.
went
One
off.
time, I don't even know what caused it. One time, April Consolo and I were like, I wonder if we can find like the Barbie Princess computer games online. You can.
Those were the best.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh
And
my
there was
God.
a Beauty and the Beast CD-ROM that I found
Ooh.
online because you could like color the stained glass.
Yeah, that's Selena White and I like text back and forth every
Mhm.
once in a while. And we were talking about some, I don't remember what it's called, and I didn't remember either back then, but she sent me like a screenshot and then she sent me a YouTube link of some like preschool, kindergarten. It was a CD-ROM game or whatever.
Mhm.
Go into the classroom and then you can play all the little mini games. And I wept. The visceral reaction, like, because you go back and you can like I could smell the old fucking piano or the that had the piano in the computer room when I grew up, and like I could hear the little noises and all that. Oh my God.
Mhm.
Oh, girl, it was insane.
There's some app that I always get ads for that has like a little like beaver badger guy in like blue jeans. And he reminds me of like computer games that I had growing up. That just like
Yeah,
something about the animation style. And I'm like, I'm not gonna download this because this is really annoying. But there's something about you, sir. There's something there.
Oh my God. Which I'm just such a sap anymore. Like I
Mm.
feel like I'm just completely losing any edge I ever had. And I'm
Yeah,
just
that's
like,
fine.
oh
I
my
feel
God.
like we're like very edgy children. I think
Yeah.
I feel like at least me, and so probably but you also as only children are like learning how to be children finally.
Yes. And that's why I have such intense reactions to like your podcast and like reading of these books. And I'm like, part of it is so like there's such a huge yearning almost because like, you're reading I'm gonna get in trouble for this one. I never read Princess Diaries,
Hmm.
and then like you guys read Pop Princess and all this, and like I completely skipped over like all the middle school books
Hmm.
because I was reading fucking Harry Potter and
Yeah.
Twilight in like fourth, fifth, sixth grade. And then I was like a college age reader or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I'm not even gonna fuck with the middle school books. And so I just like skipped and then I was reading fucking John Grisham at fucking seventh grade.
Of
And
course you were.
oh my God, I read so many of those books, and like teachers were just like, oh, all right. I was just sitting there in their class reading John Grisham, not paying any attention to what was going on up there. Oh my God. I was, again, not a popular kid at
Yeah, you're
all.
reading like dad airport books.
Oh, and speaking of Jurassic Park, I then
Mm.
read Jurassic Park. That's the only book my dad has like read and highly recommend. You, you were talking about your dad reading to you or whatever.
Yeah.
My dad and your dad being dyslexic. I don't think my dad's dyslexic. He does not read.
Yeah.
He tried to read. The only book he ever really tried to read to me was Arabian Nights, and he'd do.
Okay.
And this is when I was like 2 or 3 years old. And
No.
this man was working, like 10, 12 hour shifts at a factory. And then he'd come home and he'd just be dead tired, but he never saw me when I was a baby or anything like that. So he'd sit down and try and read this and he'd be out like a light, like in a second. And my mom would
Hmm.
find him snoring and I'd be off doing whatever I would be doing. So my dad was not a big reader. And I told him about the Boxcar Children and because I reread this in 20 minutes. I'll be
Yeah.
very honest with you. I then went back through and kind of took some notes and everything like that. But like, I was like, oh yeah, I read it in 20 minutes. And he goes, it'd take me a fucking week to read that. And I was like, I don't think
Honey.
so. So like, I never read any of the middle school
Mhm.
books that you guys read. And I was like, God,
I
it's
really
like,
recommend Princess Diaries. It's really good and it's surprisingly like it sounds so denigrating to be like it's surprisingly well written, but like genuinely very funny. Holds up very well. Yeah.
it's in my Amazon wish list. There's a big used bookstore like 8 minutes down the road from us.
Oh.
First of all, I've only gone a couple of times. We tried to go this past Sunday, and every single parking spot in the lot was filled. I was just like, I'm not doing this. I was like,
Hmm.
that's too many people for me. It was like at the end of we went Christmas shopping all morning, and it
Ooh.
was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I work nights, so like I'm
Yeah.
like, that's the
Burnt
middle of
out.
the day. I'm exhausted, and so I was like, I'm not doing this. But I've been looking for the Boxcar Children, and I never did find it, so I ended up having to like get this one new. This is another great thing about living with Casey is she's got her two brothers and they have little tiny babies and kids now. So I'm just gonna
Oh,
hoist this off on one of the children.
good. Yeah.
But I keep meaning like I've been writing a list of like all the books you guys like read because like I wanted to listen to like pop or I and then Spotify is doing the
Hmm.
15 hours of free audiobooks now or whatever. I and I started Pop Princess and then it made me think too much about Britney Spears, so I went and listened to her
Hmm.
audiobook. But
Yeah.
Princess is on the list. Just I
Yeah.
there's something about going back to the childhood books because I feel like I missed so much. And
Yeah.
I think that's an only child thing because you become like your parents' roommate
Exactly.
more than anything else. Like,
I was at this
like
party last night talking to a bunch of people with siblings, and they're like, you go back to your family, and they're like, "Mm, we don't care that you're actors, we don't just sit there." And I was like, no, I go home and my parents just stare at me. They're like, we
yeah,
love you so much. We're so
I mean it really is. I'm a little bit, I want to say both fortunate, but I also resent it a little
proud.
bit because my
Hmm.
mother has replaced me with dogs.
Yeah.
So she's got the three rescue dogs, and the one's ancient, and like the other one is a I'm sorry, he's a basket case.
Yeah.
He's, I mean, the sweetest boy, and he's been through so much, but he takes up so much of her time. And so like I went home for my Thanksgiving, Christmas. I went home the first weekend of December to celebrate with them or whatever. And they were just like, all right, hey man, how's it going?
Yep.
And then that was it. And I was just like,
Yeah.
okay, and it's so I'm almost like the complete opposite of what you've got going on, but
Yeah.
it does not feel like they don't feel like my parents, I
Yeah.
don't the way that other people talk about their parents and their family.
That's when it was, I think, sophomore year of college. I watched Gilmore Girls and I was like, what?
And I feel terrible because like right now my mom and we're good. We're pretty
Hmm.
solid right now. The distance helps
Yep.
so much. Oh
Hmm.
my God, the distance helps so much. But like that's always my fear going home is like you spend more than 3 or 4 days and it becomes almost a competition. It
Hmm.
becomes like this, where she's like, well, when I was your age, and well, here's what I would do if I were you. And I'm like, but you're not. I'm
Yeah.
not you. You're not me, and we're not the same person. And it's
Yeah.
just so hard.
Yeah. With my mom, it's a competition of who's suffering the most. And I like,
Oh,
and you can have that, ma'am. You can have that, but also other people can have hard times too at the same time.
oh God. Oh, family's hard. Family is, and when you're an only child, it's like it's all you've got.
Yeah,
And
it especially like you said, like both my parents worked full-time jobs. My mom worked from home, so she was working. She was there, but she was
yeah,
working. My dad had a huge commute. He like
yeah,
woke up super early, got home super late because it's DC traffic. He had to like drive around the whole city to get from one place to the other.
yeah,
Um, yeah. And so like a book like this is such a balm because not only are they all there, they all get along. Like Narnia doesn't even have that. All these kids
yeah,
get along. They like and the other children, like I brought that line up about Jesse always wanting things in order. And there's a line about Henry too, where he's like, I highlighted this just because I like to do this, but also so he goes, he put the tools in the toolbox and the nails in the nail box, and it was fun for him because he liked to get things in order. What's his issue? What's going on there, bro?
I like, and I'm assuming that it's something to do with, I mean, were they parentified or whatever? Were they
Mhm.
made to look after their younger siblings so much that they have to have everything? I mean, I get it. I mean, me too, because that's the
Mhm.
only thing I can control in my life. Or when I
Yeah.
was a kid, it was like the only thing I had a lot of control over was my stuff because that was, my mother in particular showed her affection by buying me things and then proceeded to call me a spoiled brat.
Yep, yep, yep. My mom called me behind my back, called me a spoiled brat while we were moving me out of my senior dorm. And I was like, I know you're upset.
Yeah.
But I was like, I just graduated and I know that you're upset because I'm leaving and I'm an adult now. But come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you read kids like this that
Yeah.
just the parents aren't a problem because they're not in the picture,
They're never
know,
even mentioned.
or even mentioned. Like even the relationship of like, oh, I miss mom and dad, or
Hmm.
that sucked that happened. Nothing. You get
Nothing.
nothing. And they all love each other and they're friends and siblings and they can live together out in the wood. Ah,
It's
it's
wild.
it really is. This is I don't know.
Yeah. My next
Kind of
highlighted thing is like the children
yeah.
like hard work.
I wish.
Yeah.
I wish that could be me. I wish I like
Yeah.
hard work.
No, when I'm like you were talking about organizing and controlling your space. To this day, when I am home with my parents and I need a break, I'll go down to the basement and rearrange my mom's bookshelf. Just but
Ooh,
no order at all. Just
yeah.
for kicks.
Yeah.
Because it's so and I mean I do the same thing here with my books. Just you can finally put things in place, there's an order that you can impose on the world.
Yes. Which is it's so empowering. It makes you feel so steady because that was I lived at my mother's, I don't know, whatever you want to say, command, I
Yeah.
guess. Go here, do this, clean your room. Well, why? Why do I need to clean my room? Nobody's coming in there except for me because I said so. that was all her. She
Mhm.
had complete control over that. And even a little bit later, into my, teenagedom, she gave me a little bit more freedom almost of like, well, if you get bugs in your room, that's on you. If you get mold or whatever, she's like, that is a lesson you need to learn because clearly what I've been trying to do has not been helping. So just whatever you got to do. But even just like having the control of not putting shit away,
Yeah.
magnificent. Oh my God. And
Yeah.
then now, of course, I'm like, it's a controlled mess. It's
Yeah.
it's a controlled chaos. I know where
Whatever
everything.
works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
these books just they're bringing up a lot of shit, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Next thing I have is they're picking the cherries for the doctor. So convenient that it's a doctor, by the way.
Yeah,
And he says
very
like, yeah, all the kids can come back because you're happy workers. And I was like, God damn it. I don't want to talk about capitalism here, but here we go.
for $1 each.
And he wins $25 for running in this race, but
Yeah,
the reward for finding these kids is $5,000.
what the fuck? And this is and that was the other thing that like I had completely glossed over as a kid, and then I only noticed it when their grandfather had maids.
Yeah,
Who the fuck
maids.
has maids in 19, so like say this was set in 1942 or
Yeah,
whatever. How rich do you have to be to have maids?
yeah.
Also to have an entire boxcar transport, because that's the end of the book. They move in with their grandfather,
Yes.
and then they're sad because they miss the boxcar. They miss living there. And he's like, I'm gonna get you a surprise. And he has this whole ass boxcar moved into his backyard for them to use as a playhouse.
That's a big ass backyard.
A big ass backyard. Oh my God. I wish my grandfather was like this.
I know.
He's great as he is, but like
Yeah.
he could be better.
My
He could give
shitty
me a box.
grandparents had an amazing backyard. It was
Yeah.
just like Kentucky is so green and it was just lush and they had a little porch and they had the little swing on the porch. The I guess it's a glider. Ugh, ugh,
Yeah. Oh my God.
yeah.
That's Casey and I are talking about going up to visiting. My grandfather lives in Maine now,
Mm.
and we're talking going up there. We're talking about moving there, just straight up, just for something. I don't know. I just need something different, you know what I'm saying? But
Yes.
I've never been to his house, but he's got a lot of land or whatever. And that's what I was thinking about when I was reading this. And I was like, oh God. I was like, do Maine and Connecticut look similar at all in landscape? It's like, I don't really know.
I mean, everything up there is all the states are so small. They have
Yeah.
to probably,
Yeah. I mean, hills, trees.
yeah,
What more do you need?
lumber everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Big flat rocks that you can just build stuff with.
Put in a
Oh,
cart that like a 4-year-old can put in a cart and lug masonry around.
this is okay. This is one thing that I maybe, I don't know if I missed this or not. Does it say their ages?
Oh, I have no clue, but Benny is very much baby of the
Oh,
family.
okay. So literally second page because I'm stupid. The little boy said he was about 5 years old.
Okay.
She was about 10 years old, was Violet.
Oh.
So then I'm assuming Jesse was probably 11 or 12 and
Hmm.
Henry's probably 13 or 14.
See, I thought Violet would have been much younger, like much closer to Benny's age. That makes a
Yeah,
lot more sense.
7 or 8.
Yeah.
That. And then I put them all really young. I don't know.
Yeah.
Really makes sense, maybe. I
Yeah,
don't
you were
know.
talking about how many all of the pages beforehand. My book is on an app, so you can
Yeah.
change the size and pages. 7 pages of other titles.
Holy shit.
But the last one, the
Oh no.
Raptor Rescue.
Yes.
What the
So
fuck
that's
is
and
that?
I was trying to go through this the other night where I was like trying to go, okay, so I know that I read Surprise Island, Yellow House. I know I read Mike's Mystery, Blue Bay, Woodshed, Lighthouse. And then I was kind of going through the rest of it. I was like, the Panther Mystery, the mystery of the Queen's jewels. And then yeah, at the very end, it goes into the fucking the Raptor Rescue, the Great Greenfield Bake Off. What?
The Donut Whodunit, the
Yes,
Celebrity Cat Caper, the
the
Legend of the
Zombie
Howling
Project.
Werewolf.
Oh
There's
my,
a zombie.
yeah, the Zombie
Yeah.
Project.
These
I
start getting into like Magic Treehouse and Bailey School Kids. There's
Yes,
Grinning Gargoyle. Yeah.
this is the creature in Ogopogo Lake.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the zombie project is wedged between Monkey Trouble and The Great Turkey Heist, which sounds like a Bob's Burgers episode.
It really does. Maybe
But
that's where
like,
they're getting all their ideas is from the Boxcar
um,
Children.
my really controversial opinion is Bob's Burgers needs to stop doing musical numbers. You're
I
writing like 5 minutes of story.
One a season.
Yeah.
That's all we need. We don't need it that often. Like I can't. I love that show so much, but like I literally cannot watch.
Mm-mm.
I haven't watched the like last season and a half because I'm just like
It's
it's
exhausting.
fatiguing.
Yes,
It
exactly.
really makes me very tired. It's too much.
Yeah.
So like I'm working retail right now. So I'm working at a big TJ Maxx Home Goods in Brentwood, Tennessee, which is one of the suburbs of Nashville, and it's the new money. So I
Mhm.
live in Belmead, which is the old money. And then I go and I work and when I tell you, the Mercedes, the Bentleys, the really expensive Audis and all that kind of shit. And I keep meeting these people because I'm not even wearing like a fucking name tag. I work overnights. I do stocking, but I happen to be there while customers are there. And they're like, you work here. They're like, help me out with something. And they're music executives, they're record producers, they're sound engineers, they work with fucking Taylor Swift and I don't know any of the country artists anymore, but like they work with all of these, and you're just like, holy shit. And I'm like, I have to watch because I hate modern country music
Mhm.
so much.
Post
Yeah.
9/11, yeah. It's
Oh my
really, yeah.
God. Oh my God. You get subjected to it a lot here,
Yeah.
all of the radio, and you're just like, Jesus fucking Christ, because it
Yeah.
is.
I listen to a lot of old country. I listen to a lot of folk. Like, there's some great
Yeah.
stuff in there. Like,
Coulter Wall is fucking great. If you're interested, because he's got that old sound, but
yeah.
he's so good. I'm really excited about. I don't watch The Voice. I literally only see this on TikTok. But that girl Ruby Lee, who's on Reba McEntire's team, who yodels.
Oh.
I will send you a TikTok with her because her sound is just fucking gorgeous. Oh my God. That is the one good-ish thing
Hmm.
about being here is that it kind of has reminded me how much I love music and shit like that. I mean, can't sing. I can't,
Good.
well, I can, but I shouldn't.
Okay.
That's I said this to somebody at work or whatever. One of these fucking customers or some shit comes up to me and they're like, "So why did you move to Nashville?" And I was like, "To be a country singer because I'm an asshole." And they were like, "Good luck with that." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Have a good day." And I was telling Casey about it, and I was just like, just to be a fucking dick about it. I think it's so funny to tell people that I moved here to be a country music singer. One thing I do want to talk about with the Boxcar Children, and I don't know if your like digital version had this at
Hmm.
all, but like from a painter's perspective, the
Yeah.
illustrations.
Hmm.
This is one thing I was so worried because this cover, and I obviously our audio listeners can't see this, but
But
like if
like
you
that.
Google, this is not my cover of the Boxcar Children. This is
Mhm.
not what this is supposed to look like. Apparently, they did a movie here a couple of years ago, like an animated movie, which I'm
Oh.
not going to watch. But they redid these covers at some point. I hate this. It's just so, and I guess, I mean, they are for ages 7 to 10, but this is just not, it's too colorful,
Mm.
because of what I remember is the illustrations inside that are just straight up black and white. And I was like, God, I hope that these illustrations are still here. And
Mhm.
as a young kid, as a young artist, as a kid who liked to draw,
Yeah.
I tried to recreate these all the time, and I never could.
Because they look like wood block, right? They're all
Yeah,
silhouettes.
yeah. And they're just, I mean, the one where with the blueberries or whatever. I also
Um,
love the little like inserts of like all the little vegetables that just
yeah.
right in the middle of the text is so, so great. But I mean, these made such an impact on me. The dump,
Yeah.
again, I know I'm so sorry to the audio listeners that you guys can't see this. I'm like literally holding this book up as though people are going to see this. But these illustrations had such a huge impact on me as a kid who liked to draw. But then also the descriptions in this book, while simple,
Mhm.
were so effective. Again, as a little artist or whatever, I would sit here and I would try and draw the box car and I'd like do like little floor plans about how I would plan out my box car. Little fucking nerd. But like, I was so happy to see that this new version of this book still had these, because that was like my biggest fear. Because
Mhm.
again, when I was looking at the used bookstores, I was trying to find the original like version that I had, the copy that I had read when I was a kid. Couldn't find it. So I was like, dear God, I hope it still has. They're just perfect. Not too much
Yeah.
detail or anything like that, but they give you, I mean, the vibe, the energy matches here with the, the simple sentence structure and
Yeah.
story and everything. And then these very simple pictures that just, oh, they're so great. They're so effective. Very exciting stuff. It's really not, but again, I was a square as a kid and I was like, pictures,
Yeah.
illustration.
How was it overall revisiting it?
God, it's very different than what I remember. Again, when you're a kid,
Mhm.
things are so big. They're so This book was I mean, I keep using the word impactful. I hate that. But I mean, it was my favorite book for so long.
Yeah.
For a couple of years, this was my book. This made me want to read. This made me want to keep reading. As an adult, clearly not from our time.
Yeah.
Obviously very, very boomer, sexist, very sexist.
Mhm.
The little tiny notes of, like the boys were building the swimming pool,
Mhm.
the girls were like getting dinner ready. And that was their job. They did the dinner and the boys did the other work and all that kind of, that was difficult to read and to kind of, make sense in my brain that, I loved this book so much and I just didn't notice that stuff as a kid.
Yeah. I think especially because there's not like it's all very implicit. It's that Henry will
Yeah,
go out and take care of the family and
yeah,
Jesse will tend to the house. So it
yeah,
feels more individual, I think, rather than systemic from
yeah,
if you don't bring that to it if you're a kid, but it's
yeah.
there.
Yeah. And the fact that it was my mother that recommended this
Mhm.
book and
Yeah.
that she had also read that at some point is just, I don't know. That's life, I guess, right? I don't know. It's just like, it's weird.
Yeah.
It makes me sad, but it was also, this book brought me so much comfort as a kid that like I've got like kind of the echo of that anymore. But
Yeah.
like, it also does remind me that I wanted this sense of community that these kids had together. I wanted that kind of a bond with other people
Mhm.
so, so much, and I never found it.
Yeah.
And I spent, the last probably 10 years making peace with that. Now, I'm not saying I won't find that sense of community
Mhm.
at some point, which would be amazing. But, as an only child, you gotta figure this stuff out on your own.
Yeah.
And reading about siblings is great, but it's hard.
Yeah. To this
There are
day.
there are not many books about just only children that I remember that I read.
It's such a different experience of
Yeah.
everything. And I
Yeah.
feel like if you have siblings, then you're just sort of like, "Oh, shut up." But it really is.
Yeah.
It's really different.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to remember. Like Twilight is the biggest one that
Mhm.
I know, where she's like an only
Yeah.
child.
And Harry Potter, but
Yeah, but he had the cousin, which is kind of like a
yeah.
pseudo sibling, and they had kind of the whole, siblings that hate each other kind of vibe.
Yeah. And I think that's also like so much of that book and book series is about how special that one individual is.
Yeah.
And I think also the thing that I think resonated with Harry Potter with so many kids is that you found a place where you belong. Like that sense of community was so inherent in it,
Yeah.
and the element of like there's a reason why you feel different. I think that's the same thing with Percy Jackson. Is there's a
Yeah.
reason why you feel alienated.
Yeah. And that's well, kind of Twilight too, is because
Yeah.
she was built to be a vampire.
Mhm. You
I was
just
thinking,
smell different.
yes. Oh no. She thinks differently. Her brain's broken. I don't know. Reading this book as an adult was, I don't want to say hard, but kind
Mhm.
of hard. Like it was
Yeah.
trying to make sense of, why I loved it so much as a kid versus now, just kind of like, all right, it's a
Yeah.
book. It's great.
You made a book. Yeah.
She wrote a book a long time ago and they cut pieces out of it and made a different book. There it
I should go looking for at least more information on the differences because there are holes, there
is.
are oddities.
And I wonder, because like what's so, I mean, I know you'll ask this question, is this required reading to get
Yeah.
to know me as a person? No. But I think this is
Okay, good.
I, there's that answer for you. But I think this is a great option for kids to introduce them to chapter books.
Absolutely.
I have a couple of friends that I work with at Michael's that are teachers now, and I don't know what side of TikTok you're on, but I'm getting all of this residual from the pandemic, but
Yeah.
also from the No Child Left Behind bullshit of these kids literally cannot fucking read.
Yeah.
They can't read. And like, how do you make them want to read? And it
Hmm.
starts at home, obviously, but like there are not many books. You can't just go from Dr. Seuss to Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah.
You can't do it. That's just not how this works. You need something that transitions you gently. And I think this is a good gentle
Yeah.
transition because you're talking it's simple sentence structure, it's simple, it's a very simple story.
Yeah.
There are not many twists and turns. It's very easy to understand.
Yeah, everything all comes together in the end really easily. Like there's nothing extraneous. Like the thing that the dog hears is the doctor coming to check on them, and everything
Yeah,
is resolved pretty much. Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah. I think you have to be like in your 20s to eke out all of those weird
Hmm.
little questions. But for kids, this is it's a very neatly wrapped little present.
Yeah.
I think it's a great option. And I don't have kids. I'm not around any kids, so I don't know if this is still something that I mean, obviously you didn't have to read it in school. I mean, I don't know if other kids at my school read it, but I know Miss Reed in third grade read this aloud to us. And again, I sat there probably for about 5 minutes until I was like, all right, I've already read this. I'm
Yeah.
bored. And then I went out to the next ones. But it's just such a great, gentle introduction. Again, it made me want to read more of this series. And then as you go on, you get more and more complicated. It introduces you to different genres too. I think
Yeah.
it's really good
Hmm.
because it goes from, I don't really know what kind of genre this is. I don't know what you'd call.
Yeah. It's I think it's what's interesting is how deeply rooted in like realism it is. Because I think that's something
Yeah,
I'm noticing is that I did not read realistic stuff. When I wanted dragons, I wanted talking mice, I
yeah.
like exactly that was what
Well,
interested me.
this goes from realism into mystery,
Hmm.
which but it also this one does have a good sense of adventure or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that would move you very quickly into the dragons and the magic
Yeah.
tree house and the this and the that and the other. But absolutely, I see the realism in this. Just this is such an odd little book.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's just a very comforting little book.
Yeah.
When you're a kid. Now I have questions.
Yeah.
It is a little dry. It's not funny. They are
Yeah.
definitely more caricatures than they are characters. They're little plot devices to teach you morals and principles.
Yeah.
And part
But
of
like
those,
you said, it's a step from
yes. And I think that's the most important part about this book is that it makes you want to read other books.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to plug?
My Instagram at Douglass Douglass 945. You guys want any art? My commissions are open. I don't have a commissions sheet open right now or off right now with all my prices or whatever. So just contact me and we can work something out. But I'm just hanging out in Nashville trying to figure out what's next.
That's all you can do.
Listen to required reading. They already are. I'm not sure why it needs it, but you should go and listen to all of the episodes. Oh my God, I can't. The Catching Fire. Okay, you can cut this out. We got to talk about Hunger Games and Catching Fire, though. First of all, how did you not read those when you were a kid?
I
What
don't
were you doing? Where were you?
I mean, I was onto TV at that point, and I don't know. I mean, I know I was reading Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. I know I don't know. I just didn't. My mom did.
Your mom. Oh my God. Girl, see, and you're reading those and you guys are going through and like analyzing everything. And I'm just like sitting here thinking about poor sad little boxcar children. And I'm just like, I'm like, all right, well, we don't have a lot of theme or subtext in this one, but oh my God. I'm sitting here talking to you guys like
Yeah.
we're talking on the podcast. Oh my God. It's so good. This is such a great fucking idea for a podcast.
Thank you. If there are any more books you want to do, come on, come back.
I
Hmm.
I read these and then I moved into Harry Potter and then Twilight and then I was reading adult books
Yeah.
while I was a kid. So like I can't think of.
But I mean, if there are any of those adult books that were impactful, I mean, we just did Streetcar, you know?
Yeah, that was
Big turn,
I
big turn.
I know that I saw that on your Instagram. I saw you plug that and then I was just like and then the episode came up and I was like, wait, like the Streetcar Named Desire? I was
Yeah.
like, am I missing a kid's book?
No,
And
that
I was
one.
like, oh shit.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. I mean, we could just sit down and bash the Scarlet Letter if you want to.
Oh, absolutely.
Love to just
I've
talk
never
shit.
read it. Yeah.
Honestly, I think I've only read it all the way through once. Hated it. It was terrible.
Good. We haven't done like a hate episode yet, and I want to.
We should do an episode of just books we hate.
Yeah.
That would be awful.
But I want to do one. New Year's gonna come and I'm gonna try to pin you down for that for Scarlet Letter.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what other books I hated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was so much fun. Oh my God.
I am gonna get you to do Scarlet Letter. It's decided. Thank you so much to Madeline for coming on. I did a tiny bit more research into the 1924 version, and pretty early on, like first couple paragraphs, they do explain what's up with the parents. Father is a drunk. He is literally falling down drunk. Mom is dead. And then the next day, dad dies. Day 2 of the book, dad dies. And they say that their grandpa didn't want their dad to marry their mom, which I assumed meant that grandpa is mom's grandpa. Wait, but they have the same last name, right? God damn it. And they're afraid that he would treat them cruelly. But I think at the beginning they're like, Jesse saw him one time and he didn't know it was her, but we saw him. It's on Gutenberg.org if you would like to find it. And I think I read that they drink from a creek, and in the new one they only drink potable water. I can't speak to that. God, is anyone else having the problem where I just want to buy fucking everything? Oh my God, I'm looking at my likes on Depop. Oh, I really want that. All right. Well, I will leave you with this. You're So Vain is such a great song. I don't think there's ever been a line of poetry that I have loved as much as I had dreams. They were clouds in my coffee. Clouds in my coffee hand. And the second thing is that one thing I fucking love about that song is that, everyone's like, who's it about, Carly? Who's it about? And one time Warren Beatty was like, guys, it's about me. Come on. Hilarious. Love him. Did you know that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 starts with a raccoon mournfully singing Creep? All right, have a good one. See you next time. It's such a good episode coming up. We are talking American Girl Magazine's The Care and Keeping of You. It is our body episode. We talk about puberty, hormones. I'm so excited. My name is Erin R. Bowles. I don't go by Erin R. Bowles, but I'm thinking because all my handles are at Erin R. Bowles, Bowles. The E is misleading, I know, but why would anyone willingly have the last name of Bowles? That's where the poop is stored. No one's called me this in a long time. I'm rambling. My name is Erin R. Bowles. You can find me everywhere at Erin R. Bowles. The R stands for reminiscing, as we do every episode on this podcast. And I need to sign off before I keep saying bizarre shit. This is 3 minutes. All right. Love you. Bye.